Good day, ladies and gentlemen. This is Sarah van Grennen, aka Mr. VG, and what a wonderful day to do financial mathematics. What we are going to look at in this specific video, ladies and gentlemen, is the concept of simple interest. Now, although this is a very simple concept, I'm sorry, I'm being a real dad about this, but simple interest, this video is going to also help you to basically solidify the concepts of interest versus interest rate. So let's get started with simple interest. What is simple interest? Well, simple interest is when interest is earned on the initial investment. Okay, so I've highlighted or underlined that word for us in there, initial. Very, very, very important word. So whatever is available in the bank is not really of any use. It's what I invested right at the beginning that's the important part, okay? So in other words, let's say I take an example of investing 1,000 Rand at 10% per annum for 3 years. And in this case, I am telling you, not the sum, I am telling you, you may assume simple interest. So let me put it in there so it doesn't confuse you. Okay? So what am I telling you? You must be told it is simple interest or be placed in a situation where you know that you use simple interest. You don't assume simple interest, okay? So once we've got this, let's have a look at what I'm going to do. And I'm going to take this step by step. I'm going to go in year one, looking at 3 important things. The start, how much interest I earn, and the final amount in the bank. So in other words, I start with 1,000 Rand. Easy and straightforward. Now I earn 10% of the 1,000 Rand. So in other words, I earn 100 Rands worth of interest. My final amount is the start, so the 1,000 Rand plus the amount of interest. Okay, so here's just a little bit of a important concept. I've got 2 things here. I've got interest rate and I've got interest. Get the difference. Interest rate is a percentage of a value that it gets increased by. Interest rate is interest is an actual amount that you get back or get charged by the bank. So it's the difference between our starting and our end values is the amount of interest, okay? So therefore, I'm ending up with 1,100 Rand. Now, what about year 2? Remember, now I start with 1,100. But how much interest do I earn? I earn 10%, be careful, on the initial amount. So in other words, I still only earn 100 Rand, 10% of 1,000, which means I'm going to end up with 1,200. Now, what about year 3? I start with 1,200, and again, I earn just 100 Rand because it's always interest, the interest rate on the initial amount. No matter how many years, the interest amount is going to stay the same, which means I end up with 1,300 Rand. If you ever decide to go to Math Lit, this that I did here, where I take it year by year by year, is still the way that in matric you've got to calculate the interest, the amount of interest that someone earns, or the final amount must be done using this table method. So this is very important for you to understand it. But what if I have like 10 years? Am I going to go and do a table with 10 lines or 10 rows? No. Of course, there is a formula. A equal to P1 plus IN, where A is your final amount, P is your initial amount or your principal amount, I is your interest rate, and N is your number of years in simple interest. Okay? So in other words, if I say I invest 10 or 1,000 Rand at 10% for 3 years, I am given P, I, and N. So I'm going to substitute that in. 1,000, 1 plus 10% over 3. Now here comes an interesting little thing. Your teacher might not like that you use 10%. So in other words, you could just as well go and say, 10 over 100, because that's percentage. Or even better, 0.10. Now, whichever one of the three you use, I am fine with it, but you've got to check with your teacher which one is good, okay? Most of my colleagues I know prefer 10 over 100, okay? Personally, I don't mind at all, whichever one of the three you use. If I plonk this in my calculator, I've got 1,300 Rand. But wait, sir, that's exactly the same amount as I got right at the beginning, okay? So doing the first method or doing the second method, the same thing. So how much interest did I earn? Now that, ladies and gentlemen, you see in that little block on the in the corner. So let me quickly go back. Interest, the amount of interest, is the difference between what you get out in the end and what you had at the beginning. So in other words, 1,300 minus 1,000, which is 300 Rands worth of interest. Another useful tip, ladies and gentlemen, when you're looking at this, is that this formula can be used to find out how much I need to invest now to get an amount in the future. So I want 12,000 Rand after 4 years at 9% per annum, simple interest. So what do I have? I have A, because that's my accumulated, my final amount. I've got N, and I have I. Going to my formula, I'm just going to substitute in. So in other words, 12,000 Rand is P1 plus 9% times 4. Again, teacher might not like 9%, so let's rather put 9 over 100. But then how am I now going to get rid of that bracket? Okay, I want you to kind of think of it like this. Say I've got 3 equal to x times by 2. How do I get rid of that times by 2? I divide both sides by 2. And I get x to be 1.5 or 3 over 2. Okay? I'm going to apply the same principle. So I'm going to say, okay, let's divide both sides by that whole bracket. Look, you've got a fancy calculator, so you might as well use it. But what I do one side, I do the other side. And this gives me P to be 8,823 Rand and 53 cents. So what does this mean? It means for me to get 12,000 Rand after 4 years at 9% per annum simple interest, I've got to invest 8,823 Rand and 53 cents. Simple and as easy as that. But I don't want you to just stop here. You need to know what are the uses of simple interest. The first use of simple interest is to practice the concepts of interest and interest rates. That's it. Working with percentages, understanding what's the difference between a rate, a percentage of something, versus an actual amount, that's interest. But also, the most common use of simple interest is what I wrote down second there, hire purchase. Now, hire purchase will be explained in a lot more detail in the next video. So please tune in, and I hope that you get what I'm trying to teach you. I hope that you understand. If not, please feel free to come in contact or ask your teacher as well. Ask a friend, but make sure that you get these concepts. I hope you're going to have a beautiful, amazing rest of your day. This is Mr. VG signing out. Cheers.